Welcome to the Happy Disruptors podcast. If you're a creative thinker with an unconventional approach to your industry, you just might be a happy disruptor. Join your friends at the Great Outdoors Foundation for honest conversations about tackling critical issues like conservation with an uncritical disposition. If you like to smile and get things done, this is the podcast for you.
Hello and welcome to the Happy Disruptors podcast. I'm Katie and I'm so thrilled to be joined by two gentlemen you might already be familiar with, Nicholas and Kent. Please tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Well, I just found out that upon first appearance, am not very exciting, as Nicholas said. Just talked about from the hiring process.
you just start off mild.
Yes.
I'm a slow build, I guess. But no, my name's Kent Boucher. I work at Hoxie Native Seeds and help host the Prairie Farm podcast. I'm the production manager, so the guy who's doing the bulk of the field work and the seed cleaning and all of that at Hoxie. And then this is my little brother, Nicholas over here.
My name is Nicholas Lirio, and I'm technically the CEO of Hoxie Native Seeds and the co-host of the Prairie Farm podcast. I'd like to be clear, it was Kent's idea. The podcast was Kent's idea, and then he got so busy with farm work, he said, you do it. I tell people many times, we would never, like the podcast would be not near what it is today if it was just one or the other of us. Actually, we both have our own podcasts, and they're much smaller than the podcasts we do together. So
that's amazing. I love that.
So we're half good, basically.
Yeah. But we together we equal one. Yeah, yes. One of what you're able to do.
Definitely not. Okay, so tell if listeners aren't already familiar, tell us a little bit about the Prairie Farm podcast and really Hoxie Native Seeds.
Yeah, that's a good CEO question.
That's a good CEO. Well, let's start with Hoxie Native Seeds. Once upon a time, my late father in the 80s couldn't make money on anything, which is part of the Iowa story, right? The farm crisis. Yeah. And was seeing farming was changing rapidly. He was a man before his time, and he realized there was no habitat left for birds and other wildlife and wanted to do something about it. And so he planted some Indian grass, and through 10 or 15 years of trial and error, had about 15 different native prairie and wildflower species that he harvested the seed off of. And fast forward, we've done over 50 different species at different times, and we work really hard at both growing the species and helping consult with people who want to get a native prairie on their landscape, which sounds kind of niche. I put out a post a little while ago about that more of our problems in the Midwest than you would think could be solved with more prairie. I mean, it's crazy how well it connects.
Say more about that.
Well, you talk about water quality is kind of the big one everyone knows, the soil quality, talk about pollinators. The pollinators in the Midwest need prairie. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. Dandelions are great for honeybees, but honeybees aren't native. Yeah. And so there's a list and a host of things that could be improved, including our everyday life. You can wander through prairies. You cannot really wander through cornfields and have nature's boosting effect on your mood and your emotions and your quality of life. And so there's a bunch of that. That's Hoxie Native Seeds. The Prairie Farm, I'm going to let Kent do it was his idea. He brought it to the table.
Everything, Nicholas is talking about there, if you've had, a thorough education on prairie and its importance to Iowa, well, not just Iowa, the Midwest ecosystem. All that. But there's a lot of people who don't know all that. Yeah, they never heard it, even though that's the ground that they're literally made out of the same elements that are in that soil that interact with the plants that should be growing on that soil. And yet they don't understand that. And so Prairie's market was really limited to government contracts. Yeah. Whether that be CRP going on private acres or DOT roadside prairie contracts that, I guess those weren't even contracts. They were just bidded jobs going on to public land, or maybe DNR had some land, or Army Corps of Engineer. And that's great. Those are all wonderful things. I'm glad we have prairie there. But if we're ever going to make a difference in those areas that Nicholas is talking about that affect our quality of life, the average Iowan needs to understand the importance of prairie. And I was a biology teacher for 8 years. And so I believe in the power of education, right? And informing people on our natural history, why it's just not, why it's not a no big deal that we don't have it anymore. Right. And so the podcast provided that avenue. And also a very real part of it is when you're in an alternative crop farm, you have to create your own markets, or you have to find your own markets. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why the corn and bean world it's pinching people more and more, because as power in the market consolidates, the smaller guys get left behind. And if you continue to try and play in a game where the market is handed to you instead of you trying to find your own part in the market, then eventually you're not going to exist anymore. Yeah. And so the not only can we teach people about why we need Prairie, but then we help create a market for Prairie seeds to be out there so that we can stay in business and not only affect the acres for the better that our farm sits on, but hopefully acres that are in people's backyards, maybe in a business's, little green space, or maybe on somebody's large farm that they're saying, you know what, maybe I don't just need a government contract to give me a reason to plant Prairie. Maybe I'll do it because it's actually good for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love, we were talking offline before this, and you guys just got back from doing some travel, and you were able to visit a prairie that had, I think you said, over 600 different variety of prairie grasses, prairie species. That number was really astounding to me. And you're talking about people who are not familiar with prairie. That was shocking to me. So I think, it seems like with your podcast in particular, you're really trying to make the topics digestible for sort of everyday listeners, because we, like you, believe that it really will take this diverse coalition of individuals to affect change. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that Prairie was, by my estimation, and there's people that know a whole lot more about Prairie than I do, and we're fortunate to get to talk to a lot of those people. Yeah. But by my estimation, it's probably, who knows, there could be a landowner out there that does have a great prairie, remnant prairie, and they've just kept it quiet, which I would totally understand why. Thankfully, this landowner has been very public about this, almost to a point that's actually caused some loss to him. Some I don't know what a better term for him is. A thief showed up and dug up his rarest. He had just a small little wetland area. They dug up the rarest species, every last one of them they could find.
Yeah, there were like 5 or 7 of these species. The DNR person that came out said he'd never seen them anywhere else. They require moving water, and the water has to be very clean. And so this DNR specialist who's been on a lot of prairies knew of 5 or 7 plants, and that was on this guy's farm. He showed about 7 or 8 people those plants, and came back later, and they were all dug up. Like obviously a shovel picked them up.
Word.
And But the good news is, the other 664 species are still there. Yeah. And it's still a great prairie. But by my estimation, it is the last great piece of tallgrass prairie in North America.
And for a little context, the most diverse biome or ecosystem on Earth is our coral reefs. And then after that, it is the jungles, tropical rainforest. But per acre, it's actually prairie. So prairie's up there as a contender, but tropical rainforest, they have more diversity, but they have bigger plants, and so they've spread over more area. But in terms of biodiversity and an interlinking web, prairie was absolute top, and it's gone.
And that's something not the fact that it's gone, but that the fact that it was that diverse is something we should be proud of. Iowa Prairie Network, which is a fantastic organization that links, like you said, like a coalition of all the different groups that it takes to recover something that is so important but is so gone. We just have a huge lift there, and it takes a lot of people doing that. IPN helps link those people together, and they have this great phrase that says, prairies are our rainforests. And that's how we should look at it. It should be something that we should be proud of as being a part of our natural heritage. Here in the Midwest, in the flyover states, we actually had the most biodiverse place to be in this country. It wasn't in California. It wasn't on the East Coast. It was here and fly over America. And that should cause us to grieve that it's gone, but it should motivate us to get what we can back and preserve what we still have.
Mm-hmm.
I have a cousin who is from LA, and she came out for our wedding, came out for my sister's wedding, has come out to Iowa a few different times. And we were talking on the phone, and she said, I just love being out in Iowa. I just love the nature out there. And she'd been on a couple runs. She would just run along a gravel road next to a cornfield. And I had to tell her, I mean, this is strong language, but I hate to break it to you, that's not nature. That is fully man-made. Iowa is, for its size, the most terraformed place on Earth. There's no more changed place on Earth than Iowa. And because you can see outside of a building for miles and miles, you go, wow, look at all that nature. I'm like, the difference between Iowa and a factory is we didn't put walls around the whole state. And we, now, to be fair, by golly, we're the best factory for what we grow in the world. We're really good at it. Very talented, very hardworking humans. But we left the prairie behind, and it's not just like a cool niche thing. It's not just having a little painting on your wall. That's a really cool painting. I love it. It's so cool right there. No, this had true and real value that as it is going away, that true and real value is also going away.
Yeah, you can tell just by the way the two of you talk about it, you're really passionate about prairie and conservation, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, we often work with individuals or organizations where conservation is a component of what they do, or they're introducing conservation into their agriculture practices. But your entire business model is conservation.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, your father started this business, 30 plus years ago. What are some of the trends that you guys have noticed over the last maybe 5 to 10 years as it relates to adoption of practices?
Yeah, I would say that especially since 30, I mean, he was a crazy person to his neighbors. You know what I mean? And people tell him, I'd never let someone farm my ground. Like, they just totally different understanding. He was growing all these weeds. And today it is much more common. There's a lot more education, and people are going there. We're not running into an education wall. That's not the wall we're running into. We're running into a big old wall called people's pockets. And that is a huge deal. There are, let's take the individual farmers out of it, because most farmers that I know make a fair or a little over fair wage, a little above average wage. I have no problem with that. They work hard. I want them to have their wage. There's like 9 companies that make most of the money that the farmers produce. So the farmers produce millions and millions of dollars of value, in quote unquote, economically every year. And they keep like 70,000 of it. On paper, wealthy as could be on paper because they have all this land. But in terms of cash flow value created by farmers, there are like 9 companies that capture all of it. And you know what? If the farmers, all of a sudden the price become a problem, well, those really big powerhouse companies, they get together, they go straight to the White House and they say, hey, we need a bailout. And then the White House gets to say, well, we're helping the farmers here, but none of that money went to the farmers. It went straight to these 9 companies who are on the behind the scenes and behind the pocketbooks of all of this. So in terms of conservation trend, we're there. We're there. Look at the tort immunity thing that's becoming headlines for Bayer. It became headlines for Bayer in Iowa. It's becoming headlines for Bayer at a federal level. And but if we don't make a big deal, the only power that we as a society have that competes with money is our spending and our voting and our individual rights. And so if we don't exercise those, forget about it. We won't be able to punch through that last wall of conservation, because we've talked about it for 350 episodes. There's a very practical, very economically sound version, even though people scream from the rooftop, well, for economics, we've got to be having the corn here, we got to have the beans, we got to have the CAFOs. There is a model that makes sense for us here. It doesn't make sense for those 9 companies, but it makes just as much, if not more sense here. And so for conservation, that's true. And another thing I'd like to say about the business business model is it bothers the heck out of me that a huge chunk of it is government subsidized. And so Ken and I, through the podcast, work very hard to help it make sense for landowners without having to be government subsidized. Now, if the government subsidies, I think it's worthwhile being there. Everyone should have a little bit of, everyone should pay a little bit for water quality. The farmers and the people drinking the water. Everyone should pay their fair share. And so that makes sense for taxes. I think wildlife habitat, because technically the wildlife is everybody's, it's kind of a shared value. I think everyone should pitch in for those things. But at the same time, I'm just not the government should be allotting most of the money in the industry. And so we've been working hard at creating economic value on that side. But then just on an e-commerce level, we get a lot more traffic on our website. I think a lot of that has to do with people are Googling it. They're curious. They want to see it. More people are putting stuff in their backyards. They're saying that, pollinators are sexy right now. That's what they want to, they want to help the pollinators, right? Definitely. So I think it's an important direction. The graph looks really good, but we're coming up on a really heavy wall, and we'll have to do something about that.
Yeah. I think people are waking up too. They're a lot of this has ridden on the fact that we have the Iowa nice thing going, right? Where we kind of keep to our own business and get along to get along. And when you start hearing things like the highest new cancer rate and the second highest cancer rate, I've heard numbers of there's counties in our state where the cancer rate is 1 in 2. Yeah. And the thing that I'm a big Iowa Hawkeye fan, and I love our tradition in our that our state has kind of been put on the map for that. After the first quarter of a home Hawkeye game, everyone turns and waves to all the kids up there in the children's hospital. It's a beautiful thing, but it's also a thing that sings us to sleep about why do we got so many kids up there? You know what I mean? I'm glad we can bring that joy to them, but it'd be so much more meaningful. And of course, not all the kids up there are there because of cancer, and not even necessarily cancers that are tied to some of our ecological problems that we have, but I imagine some are. And when your state has that big of a problem with cancer, we can't. I think we're starting to realize we can't be lulled to sleep by this tradition and this feel-good moment. We need to be spurred on to action, and we need to look at those kids and say, "I'm going to do something to help you." And I think people are starting to do that in other ways too in our state. They're like Nicholas talked about. They're following the money. Okay, who's we've had 3 direct subsidy payouts from the USDA since 2021 now. The third one is going on right now, the bridge money. And people are starting to say, okay, why are we having to do this so often? Right. It's clearly not fixing the problem of keeping farmers in business if we're having to do this every 3 times within 5 years. And so people are waking up to that too. I can think back 5 years ago on social media, most people still had this Norman Rockwell view of what an Iowa farm looked like. Kids hopping on the school bus barefoot after milking cows and gathering eggs for the last 2 hours. Yeah, that's not real anymore. That kind of farm life has been extinct for a long time in our state. And instead, it's like Nicholas said, it's a factory without walls, and in every factory, it's not the people that are on the floor doing the assembly and doing all the manufacturing work that are taking home the biggest checks. It's way at the top somewhere, right? And that model has hit Iowa, and people are starting to wake up to that, and they're seeing that, man, when our tax money is going directly to these farmers, and it's not helping them, who's capturing our tax money? And I think we're waking up to that too. Yeah. And so a part of that, the thing that goes hand in hand with that is, well, then how do we make Iowa work so that it doesn't have to keep being infused with these tax boosts? And they're looking to alternative forms of farming, which is great. but also alternative uses for their land. And so Prairie naturally comes into that conversation because it already has been through CRP for a while now. And the old set-aside program to help control crop demand. And so it's fitting in well with that. And it also matches well with the other thing that Iowans are mad about, their water quality and their cancer rates. And so as far as a trend goes for Prairie, it's been good because people are opening their eyes, they're waking up, and they're wanting to find good information on how to solve their problems.
Yeah, that factory without walls is a really powerful analogy, and I think it
that's the first time he's used that one. Where's
all
that
the way?
Well,
and you heard it here, folks.
I wanted to test it on someone else's podcast before I lost all of our listeners.
Oh, don't worry, it's a really low risk test over here, so all good. So I wanna go back to something you mentioned earlier, Kent, and we've kind of been dancing around it a little bit, but this sort of structural barrier for alternative ag that exists because of the farming system that we have. You mentioned the need to develop markets for Prairie. And that is because, we talk about this often on the podcast. We have crop insurance for a set number of commodities and
not just for yield, for expected profit too.
Right, exactly. We've got bridge funding, we've got the Farm Bill. There are all sorts of system-wide supports, whether it's at the federal level and how we're supporting it through funding, or even here locally. Obviously, there's a robust co-op system, which is there to market and sell your corn or your soybeans, and that doesn't exist. That middle infrastructure doesn't exist for alternative crops. So I feel like you guys have been really transparent about some of the challenges that exist for those in alternative ag. I don't know if you would be open to sharing some of those.
Yeah, definitely. So I live in the farmhouse where my grandfather was born. He actually he moved off the farm back in let's see here, it would have been the spring of 21, and then we moved in the summer of 21, and he was sleeping in the bedroom that he was born in when he moved.
Wow.
And it's lived there for 84 years. And so he's still living, and I love talking farming with him. He's a real quiet guy, so I have to pull it out of him. But as I was transitioning from education into farming, naturally some of those questions I never thought of before, like, where'd your money come from when this was a fully operational farm, Grandpa?
Yeah.
And where did it come from when you were a kid? And the answer was it didn't. You were raising the food that your family ate, and the money you had was like a small part of what you got from that farm, right? And it was more so what you didn't have to buy, so you didn't need as much cash to make life work. And that wasn't just their farm, that was every small farm.
Yeah.
And I think that's the foundation. If we really want to see a small farm, and I'll be honest with you, I was just talking about this with one of my best friends, Luke Fritsch, who really is somebody I actually used to teach with, and he teaches AP calculus and farms with his dad. Wow. He's an interesting guy. And we were just talking about this morning. Somebody's going to have to lose if we go back to the small farm model. And I think it's important that we're upfront about that.
Yeah.
Our land value is where that loss is going to happen. Those land values have become so unbelievably inflated. I mean, every day I kick myself for not buying land 3 years before I was born. The prices were so good back then. What was I thinking? But because I am so young. So
his title on our website is production manager, and then his little subtitle is often leave cell phone flashlight on.
Guilty as charged.
Yes. But because it's just such a brief amount of time in our lifetimes, right? That land value has just exploded. I mean, there was ground in our county that back in December sold for $25,500 an acre. I mean, that ground was purchased for, I think, around 500, because I know the family. When the last owner had it, I think they purchased it for about $500 an acre, and now it's sold for that plus $25,000 an acre.
Casual.
Right, right. And so all that value that's tied up in that land, if we were to return to a small farm system, someone's going to lose big, and we have to be honest about that. It's not all unicorns and rainbows if we're going to get to a healthier model, and I think it's important to call that out. But you have to start, in my opinion, if we're going to go to where we're supporting small farms again, we can't look at it being a cash-driven thing. We have to find value beyond the dollar. We have to see that I get better food because it's not mass produced in some confined poultry operation. It comes from right here in my yard. When I know what those animals are being fed, I know they're having a better life. I know where it came from. And that is value in of itself that you can't get from the store all the time. And we have to realize that there's other things that we have to be content with. And what I really think killed small farm America is a form of greed that could just be summed up with discontentment. People didn't look at that life as for all of its good things. They looked at it for all of its hard things. It was hard living that lifestyle. My grandpa we just celebrated his 89th birthday. I said, Grandpa, how'd you celebrate your birthday when you woke up as a kid? Did you still have to milk cows? Yeah, I still had to milk cows. Yeah, I still had to go feed the hogs. Yeah, I still had to do all of his morning chores, and then he could go celebrate his birthday, right? And then before he went to bed, he had to go do evening chores too. That's hard.
Yeah.
You don't get to go on vacations that much. You don't get to play 50 different leagues of volleyball. You don't get to, people are going to think we really hate volleyball because we always use volleyball as an example. I kind of just like it now.
I have a very specific reason.
I never played volleyball, so it's not my problem, right? But
very underrated sport.
Well, there's a convenience factor. It's kind of like the invention of microwaves. It's like, this is fantastic.
Right.
It makes it easier for me to just like throw a frozen meal in and have dinner ready in a minute. But you lose the other benefits of cooking dinner together as a family.
Exactly.
And
farming was the original work from home. It was.
Yeah, that's true.
And people gave up on that. And I think if we're going to see alternative crop farms make a recovery, we have to have that brain shift first.
You're not saying that everybody has to have their own cow and pig. You're just saying there needs to be a mind shift towards being more
how
okay
else
with
is this farm going to provide me value than just cash so that I can have a new SUV. It literally means you don't get a new SUV if you're gonna survive on a small farm. It means that.
And I think at one point, Nicholas, when we met earlier just to chat about the podcast, you talked about how another huge factor in this is going to be like we as consumers are going to have to pay more for our food. Because you are, it's like you have a huge cost differentiation between getting pre-ground Folgers coffee at Walmart versus going to a local coffee shop and having single origin beans that then the barista is preparing in a pour over. And so I think there's something there as well. And obviously commercial farming has provided a huge service to the global, I guess for global consumption, because we're able to address this need for inexpensive food for those in areas of famine or food insecurity. But here in the United States, we have sort of traded this richness in what we are consuming for a cost effectiveness in what we're spending at the store.
We really want our cake and we really want to eat it too. There's hard-coded into our DNA is the psychological principle of path of least resistance. We love convenience. WALL-E, the documentary of WALL-E, great. Just records it really well. Those people at the end, they've got less.
Pixar just always hits it. You know what I mean?
A little too close to home.
I mean, literally. And here in the Midwest, we're super overweight. We are. you go to a McDonald's and a Casey's right next to each other. McDonald's doesn't have anybody in it, not because we're so wonderful we don't eat at McDonald's. It's because now a huge percentage of our food intake is gas station food. I eat Casey's pizza. I eat Casey's.
Can you zoom out on my double chin right now, please?
But you know so we want convenience. We want you get a couple pieces of pizza for $5. It's basically a lunch. Now you got a $5 convenient meal. That isn't gonna fly. We have to actually give up both. We have to start cooking and paying more for it. That is hard to buy.
Nobody
and
wants
so
to do that.
when it comes down to, remember that wall that we talked about, that economic wall?
Yeah.
Well, these 9 companies have a genius marketing plan that truly is in their favor. They get to say, it'll be cheaper if we keep doing what we're doing. It'll be cheaper. And so I'm sure you've heard the phrase, show me your bank account, I'll show you what you worship. Show me your bank account, I'll show you what you care about. Show me where you spend your time. I would put bank account and time kind of as two sides of the same coin. Definitely. Show me where you spend those things. I'll tell you what's important to you. And we can blame legislation. We can blame big companies for using their lobbyists, their $10 million lobbyists. Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, we went to Walmart and said, no matter what, I want it cheaper. No matter where it's grown, no matter what it's confined in, no matter how much poop was on it when they slaughtered it. And obviously that's an exaggeration. All these are USDA, but the point being, like, I don't give a rip, just make sure it's cheaper. And if we don't get over that, we're not going to have a good model.
Cheaper and more comfortable.
Yeah.
And so Man, the guy who started Starbucks, I can't remember. He founded Starbucks. Howard Schultz. I like that guy a lot. He was employee driven first. He's not the CEO anymore. Well, he said his biggest regret at Starbucks was designing and popularizing mobile ordering. He said it did 2 things. One, it took Starbucks from being a cool place to hang out to just a factory. Just workers making them as fast as they can, getting these things out. People didn't get out of their cars anymore. It was just a factory. Second, with all that data, billions of orders, they said they got to see what people actually wanted. And what people said with their dollar, voting with their dollar over and over again, they said, we want more sugar and we want it bigger. And I would love to blame other people for the issues that we're in. I would love to. But when I'm looking at the beef, at Walmart or Fairway, I like to shop at Fairway. That's I'm just a shameless plug for Fairway. Love that place.
Laid back Iowa boy.
They're not paying us.
You're looking at it and okay, well, this is more expensive and this is cheaper. Well, here's the deal. I'm kind of financially strapped right now because I just added 3 more streaming services. I wanted a 2024 car instead of a 2012 car, right? So if you look at your bank account, look at your time, you'll see what's important to you. And to us, healthy food and agriculture that is done well in a balanced way, that's not important to us. And if we don't change that on the inside, it won't change.
Yeah, I think so. That can be equally like demoralizing because it's like, oh crud, I'm a part of the problem. But it also is, I think, can be quite empowering because it gives you back your autonomy of I can participate in this situation in a way that reflects my values. Right. And so I think that can also, when you are up against like feels like pretty monumental challenges, you can, to varying degrees, participate in the solution. So I think that, thanks for sharing that, Nicholas.
That's spot on.
Okay, so I would imagine your listeners represent like a pretty diverse spectrum of perspectives and like philosophy. Is there anything, and this is probably painting with a broad brush, but is there anything you can glean from like your listener feedback or sentiments about this general trajectory that we're talking about?
Turns out when you talk about Donald Trump, it can be polarizing. Who would have known?
Who knew?
This is shocking.
Sorry, we just did that on your
podcast. It's all good. We're breaking all the rules today. Testing out new analogies.
Kent just said the word Donald Trump on a podcast the other day, and I remember thinking, there went the podcast. It's done. It's roasted. Yeah. We, no matter what we talk about, we have people that heavily agree with us and heavily disagree with us, and they let us know, either in the comments on social media. Don't look at those things. Just stay away from those suckers. Or email. Sometimes we get an email. And so, but for listeners, in terms of what's important to them, we were just at a bunch of trade shows, right? We got to meet a bunch of listeners, and I would just ask them, what do you like? What do you want to hear more? What's important to you? They want to hear how culture affects conservation. They like to hear how the small business farms are making it or aren't making it. Where can we make a difference? And they like to hear what happened over the last 60 years that got us here. And the Prairie Farm podcast, it pigeonholes us pretty bad with the name, but Prairie is not separate from mental health, which is not separate from your income, which is not separate from the livelihood we have around here, which is not separate from farms, which isn't separate from the manufacturing workers, which isn't separate from Bayer, which isn't separate from the federal elections, which isn't separate from your local elections. And so they all tie together. We basically talk about every single one of them on every single podcast. Although occasionally we get a really nerdy scientist and you'll be like, well, what did you think about the federal ruling on this? And they're like, I have not read a book that wasn't about Prairie for 30 years. I don't know what you're talking about.
No comment. I love that. And I feel like that is pretty emblematic of the issue itself, right? That it would be really nice if we just had these clean lines around, like, if we could just fix X, then everything would be resolved. But it really is all interconnected. And so I think that can be kind of beautiful in a way, because everyone has their own angle and the thing that really motivates them. So, there are plenty of people who don't just outright care about water quality, but they do really care about the fact that they can't water their lawns in the summer. Or there are plenty of people who are not super interested in maybe the farming system, but they care a heck of a lot that, their neighbors down the road are having to foreclose on their farm because of the financial crisis. So I think that can also be a way of, like, you guys really hook people who may not fit into a conventional farming audience, which I think is super cool.
Yeah, we hope so. We hope we can do that, because it does affect all of us. We have a good friend, Ted Cook. He was I think he finally got to step out of the interim role, and I think they were able to find a new official president for the North American Grouse Partnership, which is a kind of a smaller conservation advocacy group. And Ted is just one of the most impressive people that we've had the privilege of rubbing shoulders with. I think he oversaw a lot of the endangered species work that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did in his past career. He retired from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, and he said once that if we want these things, we should all have to pay for them. And that's part of what you're talking about, where we try to reach as many people as we can, because conservation really is a crowd-funded thing. It's the biggest GoFundMe you could have is, hey, we all want cleaner water. How can we all be in on this together? And it's not just the level one thinking of that as well. I guess that means I got to be okay with raising my taxes. Yeah, maybe a little bit. But going back to what you were saying earlier about being willing to spend more on rewarding quality food as opposed to rewarding cheap food or just quantity food, right? Yeah. And that's why we try to hit as many people as we can, because that's really where the biggest change is going to come from.
Well, and we've come to consensus around that for other public issues, right? Like, you get taxed, and your local taxes go to funding the maintenance and development of roads that you may never drive on, in theory. Or, I pay taxes that go towards supporting schools, and I don't have children, but I am not, I guess, abdicated of that role just because that specific one-to-one benefit isn't there for me. I think we have to start looking at these issues as collective societal benefit that we should all be contributing toward, not just like, how is this directly benefiting me? So Okay, so both of you, obviously conservation is incredibly personal for both of you, and you've said it multiple times. We're up against this big wall, right? It can feel pretty overwhelming at times. Yeah. So how do you individually combat feelings of apathy or overwhelm?
When I started out at Hoxie, I came from public education, so naturally I was quite a pessimist.
Oh no!
So I made this comment about something. I was like, well, that went well, or Murphy's Law, or whatever. And Carol stopped me, and it wasn't just hey, knock that off. Carol, our founder, he said, "Whoa, Kent, you got to be an optimist if you're going to be in this business."
Yeah.
And that has stuck with me. There are so many times where it looks bleak and it looks like we're not getting anywhere. And if all you're ever focused on is the destination, then yeah, you're going to keep feeling that way. But if you celebrate the small victories along the way, then you can really be energized by that, whether it's a positive comment from somebody who tuned into the podcast, whether it's seeing just, to me, it's been incredibly rewarding. Not that I'm giving us the credit for this, because again, I think it's a coalition of everyone working together to raise awareness on water quality. That's a big deal to Iowans right now. Finally.
Yeah.
Our water didn't just get bad last year. It's been bad for a long time, and people are now upset about it. Same with cancer. People have been dying from cancer for a long time, and people are waking up about it here in our state, and that's rewarding. Every time you hear somebody say, yeah, you know what, I don't really need to mow all that in my yard. I'd just like a little 500 square foot prairie in my yard. You guys got something for that? That is a victory. And so you got to look at those small victories. But then when you do turn your focus back to the destination, you have to remember that we're just a speck in the timeline of this planet. And if I can just set things up a little bit better for my 4 kids that I have, for when it's their turn, our great friend Doug Duran coined possibly the best phrase in conservation history, which is, it's not our turn, it's not ours, it's just our turn. And if we can pass that mindset on to the next generation, and then they dig us out of our hole a little bit further, and then they pass on the tools to the next generation, then yeah, maybe 200 years from now, things will start looking a whole lot more healthy. And that, I think, is reason to stay optimistic about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that when, one, what you look at gets bigger. So if you look at the good things in the world, that becomes a bigger deal to you, and you start to talk about it more. What you put your focus on, it becomes a bigger deal to you. And Kent's going to roll his eyes. I watch anime.
Oh, my.
I watch anime, and there's an anime called One Piece, and the whole point of the show is the main character is all he wants in life.
He's trying to normalize anime. Let's just cut
more
right here.
More people watch anime than the NFL. So, and the whole point of this show is this character wants freedom in the world, and he wants what he wants. So basically, the idea is that what he wills will happen because his will is so strong. Everybody who's ever changed the world, now think about it, the world is a stream that goes in one direction. To change that whole stream to go another direction, you have to have a will of iron.
Yeah.
Now, here's the deal. I don't really know anybody that has, maybe my dad, man, that dude was stubborn.
Oh, yeah. Carol.
But I don't really know anyone individually that has that will. And the truth is, every single person on our team gets discouraged about it. Semi-regularly.
Yeah.
And then we just talk each other out of it. And we have the privilege, we meet tons of people in conservation. Some are like the most amazing people you ever hung out with. And some, I'm happy that I met them once. And that we're good. You seem like you're doing good things over there. You keep doing that. And so I have the privilege of just hanging out with people I think are awesome, and they encourage me. They encourage my soul on the topic. They remind me that good things are happening. They'll call me when something really cool happens or something really cool is going on in the news. Or Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. They just had that ginormous win where they were able to purchase that land and protect it, right? So when I get to hear, like, I had 3 people call me about that, right? And so when you get to hear those and you protect your input, I'll hang out with anybody for a little bit, but protecting my input of what's going on, that's really important. Conservation, our tagline is conservation happens one mind at a time. Conservation doesn't happen on the ground. Because humans' minds were the ones that started and then ripped up the prairie. Humans' minds have to be the one that start and put it back. And so without that, I think I would be totally discouraged. I mean, you don't know how many times Kent talked me off the ledge. You know what I mean? Like, this is just useless. Why don't we just go get a job at Edward Jones on the East Coast? What are we even doing here? You know, and it's important. And so I think the web of people and the diversity of humans that are moving in that same direction, coming together, is really important. And it's all we have against, I mean, I know very few companies that make a killing off of conservation. So we don't have the money. So we better figure out something else to do if we're going to break through that wall.
Yeah, definitely. Well said. Anything else you want to add before we move into our final segment of the podcast?
One thing I would just add there is, we may not have, you don't get rich in conservation, but you do get purpose. And there's a lot of people walking around who question what their purpose is. You know, they feel like a cog in the machine, or they know that they're pouring all these hours, all the best hours of the majority of the days of the week into something, and they wonder, am I just making somebody richer? Is that what my lot is in life? But when you participate in something like conservation, even if it's not your full-time job, which we are incredibly privileged for that to be our full-time work, even if it's just managing a pollinator patch in your yard or a small garden, you say, you know what, we of all the food we consume every year, we will no longer be purchasing tomatoes from anyone. We're going to grow all of our tomatoes. Even making those little changes like that brings that purpose back into your life. And so when you participate in the conservation process, wherever your role is at, you bring that back into your life, and that's value that you cannot put a dollar sign on.
I should also say that Kent does put his money where his mouth is. He provides, him and his family. I mean, his 4-year-olds are doing most of the work, but he provides most of the food that their family, their family provides most of the food that they eat, whether most of the meat, the majority of the vegetables, especially during garden season. And Kent decided, we're not going to chase everything in life that everyone else is chasing. Like hanging out here with my 4 kids and my wife, or here on the farm, or letting my toes feel the grass.
I'm rich. That's where my wealth is in my 4 kids, my wife, and our old sloped floor farmhouse. And that's where my wealth is. Yeah, thanks for giving me credit for that, by the way. That's nice of you.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to jump into our final segment called Let's Whiteboard It. Kent, I'm so sorry. Can you reach this whiteboard down here?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Our last question is just off the cuff. Nicholas, you've got your whiteboard over on your table, and you can either write or draw. Bonus points if you draw.
Okay.
Your response. My question for you is, if you were a prairie species, what would you be and why?
Wow.
That is a really good one.
Okay.
Don't be looking.
While Nicholas and Kent are writing or drawing their responses, make sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Definitely go check out the Prairie Farm podcast if you haven't already. And then follow along with what the Great Outdoors Foundation is doing on all major social platforms. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at greatoutdoorsfoundation.org. We'll see if I gave you guys enough time.
I only get credit for this if you can actually tell what it is I'm trying to draw so bad. I
am not going to be able to identify.
No. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. Well, then we'll see if Kent can get it.
Because I am one of those people who do not know enough about prairies, and that is why I listen to the Prairie Farm podcast.
No, I'm trying to get back at my Mrs. Larson gave me a D in middle school in art. I felt like I deserved a little better.
That's
she said
brutal.
there was
in middle school.
Yeah, she said there was too much blood on the person that I drew, so I got a D. It wasn't.
You also talked to the counselor a lot.
Yeah. All right, Ken, what do you got?
Who's gonna go first?
Okay. Do you know what this is?
Big blue stem.
Yes. Yeah.
That is actually one that I knew.
Did you know it was big blue stem?
Yeah, and then there's little blue stem too, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. I chose big blue stem because it's my favorite prairie grass, and it anchors the prairie. Lately, it's gotten kind of a bad name because it just starts out, man, if we could just have one prairie species out there in that field, that'd be great. Well, thankfully, we've started to, everyone aspires to that 665 species prairie. And it turns out when you have a prairie that no longer has bison and elk grazing on it, big blue stem loves to take over. It loves to dominate. So it kind of gets a bad rap for that here in recent years. But I try to remember that it is so important because it's like the last thing to get totally pushed out of the prairie, and that and common milkweed, I guess. So it's steady, it's there, and it's not going anywhere. And I'm a person who tries my best to live by principle and try to, no matter what the outside noise is. If I really believe something, then I try to stick with it. And so I aspire to be like big blue stem in that way where, hopefully I can be an anchor at the end of my days. I'll come across as an anchor for prairie conservation and, kind of be like big blue in that way.
I love that. That's awesome.
I like rethinking mine. What do we got?
Oh, you have a butterfly weed.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Butterfly weed.
Which was so convenient that our market.
That's really.
You gave me an orange. You gave me an orange one. It's the orange. It's like the orange flower that you see. And butterflies do love it. I think they actually like common milkweed more than butterfly milkweed. But this one gets attention, and I love attention. I love it. I just do. Just can't get away from it. And it is like a flagship. And so I see that as my role in conservation. Probably my days of planting prairie, which I'd like to say I have planted like thousands of acres of prairie. I have. But
Nick's actually, he doesn't look like it, believe me. But he's a good operator.
Yeah, my gut. Well, I feel like my gut would say I spend a lot of time sitting down driving, but I don't know.
That was truly a nurture versus nature development, though.
Yeah, that's real.
He had the world's best operator as his dad. So.
Yeah, that's real. Well, I think my role as planting is coming to an end over the next few years, and kind of even where we're at now at Hawks and Native Seeds and the Prairie Farm.
Talking about custom planting for our clients.
Yeah, and my job now is to bring attention to it, and that's what butterfly weed does.
Wow.
So
I love that.
Thank you.
Those are really deep answers. I love it.
I
was expecting.
You should see how deep the roots are.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Those are. That is astounding. We'll have to see if we can find a photo of just how deep the roots are on prairie systems. It's incredible.
Dad joke hurt my feelings. It was so bad.
Yeah, I couldn't resist.
I like emotionally.
That was a Midwestern deflection of a compliment.
Yeah.
Dad joke.
So when I went to Bible college, and the first thing they teach you when you get there is when someone compliments you, you say yes, thank you. So I came back to the farm and I'm giving Ken all these compliments. He's like, "No, you're ugly." He didn't know how to take them. So.
Oh, well, thank you guys so much for joining. It's been a blast chatting with both of you, and we'll see you guys next week.